The plane took off, carrying Nhan to Jeju. She dreamed of a sunlit house by the sea, but when the plane landed, all she saw was a gray sky, and the sea wasn't blue like in the photo, but black, full of roaring waves. Nhan didn't know she had just stepped into a house where dark secrets waited. Kim Hyun-jun's apartment was on a small, quiet street. The windows covered the thick curtains that never opened, even though the sea was only a few steps away. Inside, the white painted walls had yellowed, stained blotches like faded faces, staring intently. The furniture was sparse: a chipped wooden table, a few rusted metal chairs, and an old bed whose springs creaked every time Nhan lay down. On the wall, a crooked cross hung, like a sign of unease. Every corner in the room was steeped in the smell of stale cigarettes and something else, a faint trace of blood that made Nhan shiver every time she stepped in. The life of a foreign husband was not as simple as what Nhan had been told. Hyun-jun worked as a financial auditor for a small company in Jeju, handling contracts related to tourism, the island's main industry. His job required meticulousness, but was also full of pressure, as the contracts often involved large sums and uncompromising partners. He had once dreamed of becoming a chief accountant, but career failures had turned him bitter and quick-tempered. When Nhan first arrived in Jeju, Hyun-jun at first treated her with a cold curiosity. In the early days, he acted polite, but it was a fake politeness, like someone trying to hide their true nature. He took Nhan around the apartment, showed her how to use the gas stove and washing machine, but his voice was always so flat, emotionless. "You must do the housework properly," he said, his eyes never leaving her, as if assessing. Nhan, with her limited Korean, could only nod, trying to please him. But whenever she made a mistake, like folding clothes the wrong way, or cooking food that didn't suit his taste, Hyun-jun wouldn't yell. He would only look at her with cold eyes, as if she were a worthless object. Nhan lived in that apartment, but she didn't belong to it. Each day she cleaned, she cooked, but always felt like someone was watching. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Kim, was a terrifying ghost. Thin and frail, her silver hair pulled tight, her face deeply lined as if carved by a knife. Her eyes were pitch black, unblinking, as if they could devour Nhan whole every time she erred. She spoke Korean fast, her voice sharp as a blade, and Nhan, with her limited vocabulary, could only bow her head, trembling. Once, Nhan broke a porcelain bowl, shards scattered across the floor. Mrs. Kim stood, stepped closer. So close, Nhan could feel her icy breath. She didn't yell. She only whispered, "You won't live long, like the last girl." Nhan didn't understand it at all, but she knew the word die in Korean. From then on, every time she passed by Mrs. Kim, it felt like walking past a grave. The apartment had a locked room with a heavy rusted iron door that always radiated a chill. Mrs. Kim forbade Nhan to ever go near it, but every night, Nhan heard sounds from there. Soft scratching, like nails on wood, then whispers, like someone pleading for help. She tried to ignore it, but the noises etched themselves into her mind, robbing her of sleep, leaving her with dark circles under her eyes. One day, while Mrs. Kim was out, Nhan couldn't take it anymore. She trembled as she took out the old key she had found in Hyun-jun's drawer and opened the door. Inside was a small altar, thick with dust, with a photo of a Korean girl whose eyes were exactly like the one in Nhan's dreams. Beneath the photo was an old wedding dress, stained with dark red. like dried blood. Nhan trembled, panicked, slowly realizing the tragedies happening around her about the woman who kept appearing in her dreams. She stumbled out, slammed the door, heart racing. From that moment on, her life sank deeper into darkness. She began to see a figure in the foggy mirror in the living room. Always behind her, long hair, torn wedding dress, but when she turned around, there was no one. Each night, the dream of the woman in the torn dress became clearer. She always stood in the locked room, pointing at Nhan, speaking in Korean. "He killed me, and he'll kill you too." Gradually, Nhan began to believe there was a curse in this house. She was terrified of her husband, her mother-in-law, and the very apartment she was living in. During drunken nights, her husband would constantly shout the name Ji-yoon, the name of his previous wife, and look at Nhan like he wanted to tear her apart. She only knew that his first Korean wife had died under mysterious circumstances. One night, Nhan suddenly woke up, her heart pounding, and in the dim darkness, she saw Hyun-jun standing at the foot of the bed, holding a kitchen knife, its blade gleaming under the bedside lamp. He whispered, "You're not her, but you'll die like her." Nhan couldn't believe it was real. She curled up, holding her breath, clutching the blanket, praying this was just a dream. He stepped closer, eyes locked on her like a bloodthirsty predator, lifting the knife high as if to stab. In the moment, she shut her eyes, waiting for death. He suddenly turned away, leaving Nhan trembling, alone in the corner. She didn't understand what he wanted, always acting like a demon. Strangely, the next morning, he behaved as if nothing had happened, like a different person. But Nhan knew that something dark inside him was growing, and she was facing a deadly nightmare that could end her life at any moment. And so, in a foreign land, Nhan lived like a shadow, with no friends, no language. Every time she called home, she lied to her father, saying she was happy. But behind those forced words, her voice faltered, tears streaming down her face. She only wished she could return to the shabby house by the canal in Vietnam. Every creak of the wooden floor, every gust of wind through the cracks felt like Ji-yoon's laughter, reminding Nhan, "You can't escape." Nhan tried everything to change her fate. She struggled to learn Korean, tried to please Mrs. Kim, but nothing improved. She still had to face her fears. She trembled every time she passed the mirror, afraid the figure would step out. She jumped at every scratching sound from the locked room, fearing the door would open. And she was horrified every time she looked into Mrs. Kim's eyes, because those eyes were exactly like Ji-yoon's in the photo. After a night of restless, haunted sleep, the next morning, Nhan woke feeling dizzy, constantly nauseous. She was pregnant.